What's happening, fantasy world? It's your boy Hot Soup coming to you with our week 2 episode of I Told You So. That's right, man. We're going to go over our top 5 starts from last week and our top 5 sits and see how we fared off. Last week in week 1, I went 8 for 10. This week, not as good, but we still had a solid showing, especially on them sits. So I'm going to go over our top 5 starts that we had last week that I said you got to have these guys in your lineup if you want to win your week. Number 1 was Mike Evans, and boy, did he let me down. And all the other owners who had grabbed him in round 3. He's going to have better weeks in. Some weeks he's going to have big weeks. Some weeks he's going to have average weeks. This week was an average week. Mike Evans ended up number 42 receiver overall in fantasy scoring with 6 targets, 3 receptions, and 42 yards. 5.7 points in fantasy scoring. Chris Godwin was the man this week. Mike Evans was the man last week. Again, there's going to be weeks where they both have big games. Baker Mayfield's still looking good, doing his thing right now. So Mike Evans is going to be a must start from here on out. Of course, he's going to have games like this where you just don't have a big game. It is what it is, but it's still Mike Evans. We're not benching him. Fantasy owners, relax. So Hot Soup missed on that Mike Evans pick. Number 2, I missed on the Jerome Ford. I'm thinking Jerome Ford had a great week 1. Thinking he's coming in against a terrible run defense. He didn't have a bad game. He just didn't get a lot of opportunities. Man had 7 rushes for 64 yards, 6.9 fantasy points. We would have had more touches. Maybe game script was a little different. But hey, man, I missed y'all again. I failed y'all in the Jerome Ford pick. Man, all I can do for my fantasy owners out there who believe in me, man, I apologize. Our third player off the board who ended up number 42 receiver in fantasy scoring. This is not a miss. He got injured. It was Cooper Kupp. Of course, we're not going to bench Cooper Kupp. It is what it is, man. Cooper Kupp is a must start if he's healthy. He ended up tweaking an ankle or injuring his ankle at the beginning of the third quarter. So he only played half a game. With that said, we're not going to call it a miss. We're not going to call it a hit. We're going to call it a wash on the Cooper Kupp. We cannot foresee injuries. My next player on starts was Trey McBride. Boy, was he a hit. That's right. We hit on that one. Trey McBride gets 6 targets, 6 receptions, 67 yards, and a TD. Ended up the number 2 fantasy scoring tight end in week 2. Big things are happening over there in Arizona, man. Kyler Murray is opening up. He got his main target, Harrison Jr., going in week 2. McBride also had a big day. Those are the 1 and 2. Those are going to be his top 2 targets for the rest of the season. McBride is a lock and load. It is what it is, man. We're going to go over my quarterback pick for week number 2 on starts. He didn't have a great game, but he didn't play bad, was Jayden Daniels. To me, in my opinion, I'm starting Jayden Daniels from here on out. If I got him in my lineup and I don't got guys like Josh Allen or I don't got a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, a Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, in my opinion, is right below that tier. He's in that second tier now. He had 226 passing yards, 10 carries for 44 yards, 13.44 fantasy points, ended up number 15 quarterback on the week. That is his floor. He didn't have any touchdowns. If he threw 1 touchdown, he'd have been vaulted him into the top 10 plays for the week. So with that said, Jayden Daniels for me is a lock and load. He's a must start every week unless you have a quarterback 1-tier type player. If you're looking for somebody with a high ceiling, Jayden Daniels is that guy. The touchdown production is going to come. Hey, it is what it is. So Jayden Daniels is going to end up being a miss for me. In order for me to consider you a hit on my top 5 starts as a quarterback, you got to be in that top 10 because I'm basing this off of a 10-man league. So Jayden Daniels was a miss. So I had 3 misses this week, a wash and a hit on our top 5 starts. Now we're going to go over I Told You So episode for our top 5 sits that we had in week 2. I just want to throw this out here right quick. I hit on all 5. That's right. If you listen to me, I'm pretty sure you won your fantasy matchup in week 2. My number 1 guy said bench, and I hate to do it because I'm a Bear fan, baby. Walter Payton, classic in the house, one of the best to ever do it. Bear down. DeAndre Swift. I told y'all, bench him. That Chicago line, I don't know if y'all watched the game last night, but that Chicago line needs some help in a bad way. Caleb Williams got his ass whooped last night. I'm talking about he was getting smacked from every which way. No time to throw the ball. Also, DeAndre Swift ends up with 14 carries for 18 yards. If I went to go to my calculator in my head, I'm doing 1.2 yards per carry. I told y'all this is not going to be the DeAndre Swift y'all saw when he was over in Philly. That line in Philly was the truth. The line in Chicago is not it. That means DeAndre Swift is on my bench. Matter of fact, I don't even have DeAndre Swift. I ain't draft him. I already knew what it was, man. I love my Bears, baby, but I love my money mo. DeAndre Swift ends up the 30th running back overall in fantasy scoring in week 2. The next guy I told y'all to bench, Chris Olave, ends up number 26 overall. If you want to be a big dog at receiver, you got to be top 20. When I call the picks, if you ain't top 20, I'm sitting you. All right? There's other guys out there that I can put my wide receiver to. And I hope you did not start Chris Olave. If you did, he didn't have a bad game, but he didn't have a great game either. The man ended up with 4 receptions for 81 yards, 10.8 fantasy points, ended up the 26th receiver overall in fantasy scoring. Hey, man, if you started him, I mean, you got 10 points. If you didn't, you may have got you probably had a receiver in there that went slap off. Hopefully you did. It's your boy Soup, man. I'm just bringing you that hot mix for the 2024 season. Y'all got to check me out. Hey, man, I'm hitting on these sits. Our next running back that was on our top 5 sits for week number 2 was Javonte Williams, man. He ended up number 26 overall, running back scoring 11 carries, 17 yards. Woo, that's terrible. It's like 1.4 yards per carry. 5 receptions for 48 yards, which helped his fantasy value. He ended up with 9 points overall in fantasy standard Yahoo League scoring. Hey, man, I hope you cited Javonte Williams that had a better option. Hey, everybody was on my head, all in my inbox. How you gonna bench Tank Dell? How you gonna bench Tank Dell? Listen, man, I tried to tell y'all Nico Collins or Stephon Diggs was gonna have a big game this game. Tank Dell is the 3rd option. They're like, oh, no, he's this, he's that. No, he is matter of fact, he is the 4th option because Mixon is getting that rock. Let me tell y'all something, man. The Bears secondary is serious. They are not going to let nobody be blowing past them. They didn't get beat up top. They got beat in the middle. It is what it is, man. Nico Collins was getting chunk plays on 15-yard ends, 10-yard ends, 12-yard posts. He was eating, but they was not beating us deep. Tank Dell, I try to tell y'all should have listened. 4 targets, 1 reception, -3 yards, 3 carries for 16 yards, ended up with 1.8 fantasy points, ended up the 88th receiver in fantasy scoring. All those inboxes. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you're just a Bears fan. Oh, this, that, and the third. What y'all got to say now? Huh? Yeah, I said it. Should have benched Tank Dell. And then I said bench CJ Stroud. That is our next player on. Yeah, CJ Stroud ends up number 14 quarterback. That's right. That's not in the top 10. That is a hit. CJ Stroud would have got you 14.3 points in fantasy scoring yesterday, 260 yards and a touchdown. That's pretty much my forecast for him. I try to tell y'all, I told you so. Those were our top 5 sits, and I hit on all 5, man. So I went 6 for 9 this week. We're not going to count the Cooper Kupp. It's your boy Hot Soup. Come check us out later on this week for my top 5 starts, top 5 sits. Do not set your lineup until you check out this soup. I got the recipe. Holla.